Welcome to episode 3 of this Sports Gazette mini-series with me, Yasmin Ryder. In today's episode, we will be exploring the work of non-profit organisation Kyniska Advocacy and its co-founders.
I am Seary and I am a co-founder and director of Kyniska Advocacy.
I am Mhairi Maclennan and I am the co-founder and general manager at Kyniska.
Please be advised that throughout this episode, references of abuse are mentioned. This may be upsetting and or triggering to listeners. So firstly, Mhairi, can you start by explaining who Kyniska are and what they do?
Kyniska Advocacy is, well, it's a lot of things. First and foremost, we are campaigning and lobbying, which is sort of the same thing, for better policies to better protect, respect and celebrate women and girls in sport. Internally, a lot of what we're doing is, I suppose, at the moment, two principal strands of work. We've got the female athlete health side of things, and then we have the zero tolerance, stamping out sexual violence in sport side.
And Kate, could you tell me why you decided to start Kyniska and why what you do is so important to you?
I think for a number of reasons. One, I'm a woman athlete. I live the day-to-day of being a woman athlete and seeing the inequalities. And it's so important to me because those inequalities exist. Women are not equal to men. Women are not respected in the same way to men. We're not protected. And that is a huge, huge issue. It's also so important to me because I want to see women and girls in sport in the future in a better position than we are in sport right now. We want there to be less struggle. We want women to be able to do the sport that they love and be respected, protected. And that's why it's so important to us.
And Mhairi, I'm keen also to hear whether your reasonings are the same as Kate's.
Kyniska Advocacy is born out of frustrations that we both experienced as athletes, with a lack of progression and a lack of athlete representation at the forefront of decision making amongst national governing bodies as well as wider organisations that regulate sport. And I suppose we figured that if we were experiencing these problems in athletics, then those problems would probably be universal. And I think it doesn't take very long to look at the news and realise that that is the case. So I suppose that's principally why we set it up, but also because we didn't want people to go through the same experiences we had.
What are Kyniska's core values that perhaps set it apart from other organisations?
So I think the core values at Kyniska that make it unique, number one is that we promise to be athlete-led and always be athlete-led, and having their voices heard. The other value that I'm really passionate about is equity rather than equality. Of course, equality is so important, but what we like to look at is equity. That means actually saying men and women are different, actually speaking to women athletes, asking them what they need and what they want and acting on that and making policies based on that, rather than just being like, yeah, that's what the men have, that's what the women are going to have too.
I think when you look at the sports sector, there are so many organisations that are doing really great work, particularly around participation and like grassroots issues. But I think that what is missing is the athlete voice. But I think that's where Kyniska, that's where we really stand out. That's our USP. But also that, you know, we're people with lived experience of the things that we're trying to tackle. And I think that kind of unique insight can't be underestimated.
And what is it like being a young female in this industry?
So I think that the word that really pops out to me there is young. Mhairi and I are young founders. There's no getting around that. When young is conflated with inexperienced, that really frustrates me. The amount of times that we sit in meetings, our ability is questioned because of our youth is so frustrating. More than being a woman, I think being young is sometimes what holds us back. We're too get up and go. We're calling things out too much without any knowledge. And you know what? Actually, we have so much knowledge because we are young women in sport today.
I think that can be exacerbated when you're in a room where it's predominantly men or all men. And I think both of our experience would be that often the people in the most powerful positions are men, and so you almost have to pitch in a different way. But I think that that's at the heart of what we do, is trying to understand what the audience needs from us. How do they need us to explain things, and what has been their life experience up to that point?
You've both achieved so much in a short space of time, but can either of you pinpoint your most rewarding and or proudest achievement at Kyniska so far?
That's a really hard one, because there's lots of things that I'm incredibly proud of. I mean, for one, just setting up our own non-profit. But I guess it's when people say that made a difference, or that campaign really resonated with me, or I felt supported in going through the reporting process. You see the work all coming together. Kyniska is in the time where other people might be having a cup of tea. So the most rewarding moments, is when someone says, yeah, that helped me.
It's hard to say what our proudest achievement would be, because I think that we've done some amazing work, and I think a lot of what we do has become much more targeted and nuanced and potentially professional as we've grown and as we've learnt. But I think that we'll always be the most proud of the first thing that we did, which was successfully changing the policy within UK athletics to implement lifetime bans for coaches found guilty by tribunal process of sexual misconduct and abuse. I think that that's a change that even today, as in nowadays, we are seeing the positive impact of. For example, with the Tony Minicello case, he's been given a lifetime ban, and that would never have happened if it wasn't for us and for Kyniska. And I think at the time it was easy to kind of get our heads down and get stuck into another piece of work. But now, a year and a half on, we're really seeing a legacy of what we've already started creating. That's something to be hugely proud of.
For reference, the Tony Minicello case involved GB heptathlete Jessica EnnisHill's coach, who has received a lifetime ban from athletics after several female athletes and coaches lodged formal complaints of sexually inappropriate behaviour, emotional abuse and bullying. Jess EnnisHill later commented on social media, "The allegations are awful, and although I was never on the receiving end of any sexual physical behaviour, any such inappropriate behaviour or language has no place in any coaching or work environment."
Mhairi and I both have our lived experiences with issues within welfare, and being able to make the world a slightly safer place is hugely rewarding and is healing in a huge way. So when we had confirmation that the policy within UK athletics was going to change and lifetime bans were going to be brought in for coaches found guilty of abuse, then knowing that someone might be safer in the future was a hugely rewarding moment.
As a non-profit organisation, funding must be really important.
Gaining funding, it's so important to the growth of Kyniska. This first year that we've had has been incredible, and I've been kind of calling it our building phase. We're building a name for ourselves, building a name as the voice for women athletes in the UK. And that's where we want Kyniska to go. We want it to grow and grow, branch out and connect with more sports and more athletes across the country, and make it a truly UK-wide organisation that has athletes right at the heart of it.
And in March of this year, Kyniska organised their very own campaign, reclaiming the athletic aesthetic. Could you just explain a little bit about why you decided to run this campaign?
So we launched it within Eating Disorder Awareness Week. We wanted to create a really positive campaign in this time so that it kind of broke up the signs of eating disorder awareness with this bright, body positive, everyone belongs in sport, everybody is an athlete campaign, and hopefully got a really positive message in that week too.
Their Reclaiming the Athletic Aesthetic campaign was particularly powerful and engaging. It spread awareness that there is not one athletic body type, despite what we're often told across the media by billboards, newspapers and TV. This campaign encouraged athletes to reclaim the athletic aesthetic for every body type and involved posting a photo of them doing their sport with the hashtag athletic aesthetic to change how athletes' bodies are perceived and improve diversity. This campaign was hugely successful, with hundreds of women and girls taking part. Their Instagram post to kick off the campaign received over 19,000 accounts and over 22,000 impressions. Off the back of this campaign, they joined forces with other athlete writers and athlete-led organisations to shed a light further on the experiences of body image and female athlete health. Their ambassadors and interns also contributed to a written piece that appeared in Athletics Weekly. Why is the visibility of female athletes and female sport so important?
So I know it's cheesy. If you can see it, you can be it. That's really true. Yeah, I've seen so many cute photos of little girls in their England kit watching the Euros and being inspired. Visibility is the way that we inspire children to grow up and want to be that in the future. And that's why we need to see women's sport just as much as we see men's sport.
And Mhairi, can you explain why the language we use when referring to sport is so important?
So language is really important when we're talking about sport, because if we refer to men's tennis as tennis and we refer to women's tennis as women's tennis, it makes people perceive men's tennis as the standard, original, pure, real game, i.e. men's tennis is tennis, that's what tennis is, and then women's tennis is this extra, lesser, different, unreadable thing on the side. It therefore differentiates or draws attention to some sort of difference.
And finally, Mhairi, what resources are available if anyone listening needs to report an incident of abuse and doesn't know who to speak to or even how to start this process?
In terms of resources that are available, on our website we have a welfare toolkit, which at the moment is principally geared towards the athletics, procedures. However, the first and second page actually are really, really useful for everybody in all sports, because what it's about is identifying signs that there may be abuse, and essentially understanding what is abuse and what is abuse of a sexual nature. And I think that that initial part of that toolkit is universal and really, really useful. In terms of other resources that are available, a lot of national governing bodies and sports councils have advice and have toolkits. Normally it's under safeguarding or duty of care or welfare on their website, so do look for those. And then I suppose finally it's looking at the organisations that do offer those kind of services, like Ancraft Trust. They also have trained professionals. So there are lots of places to go. I think what the problem with sport is there's not one specific place that athletes should go to, and there's not a universal place for all sports. But watch this space, because we're going to keep campaigning for it.
Kyniska Advocacy have achieved so much in their first year, from launching their own campaigns and panel events to changing their first national policy and even being mentioned in Parliament, all alongside training and working full-time. But Mhairi and Kate have never lost sight of their main aim: to celebrate, protect and respect women in sport. A massive thank you to Mhairi and Kate for their time recording this episode. They really are two inspirational women on a mission to make sport a safer place for all. Keep up the great work. Yasmin Ryder, Sports Gazette.